Chiefs are back on the clock at pick 63 or 66. They've already selected Omar Norman Lott here. We're going to continue to discuss the next selection for the Kansas City Chiefs. And we just talked about Andrew Makuba going off the board, the safety out of Texas. Darius Alexander, I think the defensive tackle that we spent some time talking about, a little bit on the older side, a year or two older, actually. Will be 25 in his rookie year, so maybe that scares the Chiefs off a little bit. The talent's really good as one of those kind of disruptive interior players. He goes off the board as well. So another defensive tackle is off the board. You're sitting here at pick 66. You still got some really good corners. You got some good receivers. You've got some good edge rushers. Like you're just going to continue and invest on on the defensive line. I think that would make some sense too. So I'm fascinated to see what the Chiefs do at pick 66 here.
A guy that we haven't mentioned yet, when we were talking about pick 63, Kyle Williams, everyone's favorite wide receiver out of Washington State, still available. He doesn't fit the big body aspect that we like for Chiefs wide receivers, but if I'm to put my mind in the Andy Reid tree and say, hey, we love guys with the ability to separate and create yards after the catch, Kyle Williams makes sense, and he did play X wide receiver almost exclusively. He played X like 70% of the snaps at Washington State, so he does have the outside-inside flexibility if you wanted to go with more of a pass catcher that's not the X body type and A.O. Manor that we already mentioned. So there's other offensive weapons out there that would be a lot of fun. You mentioned it. There's still plenty of cornerbacks out there that we all still kind of like, and we will see how that plays out. It's still a pretty good board for the Chiefs. They went with Omar Norman Lott just a couple picks ago. You have Makuba, who I would have loved to come off the board. Darius Alexander's off the board. They still have Landon Jackson, who we've all been kind of asking for a while. So there's still some players here.
It'd be interesting to see if the Chiefs just invest in the trenches with their first three picks. I think just seeing a theme there would be kind of fascinating. I think Landon Jackson would make a ton of sense. Pause. My bad, but that would be one that makes I think that would probably be one of my favorite selections here. Is if the Chiefs were going to go take a Landon Jackson on the defensive line as well.
Is there an obvious reason he's still available, or is this the weird one of day two for you now?
This feels about where, I think maybe you could make a case for Landon Jackson to be up a little bit higher than this. But, I don't know if it's too absurd that he's still on the clock.
Pick 66 is in.
The pick is in for the Kansas City Chiefs, so they are making the selection. They're not moving up. They're not, they're not moving back. They are locking. They're sticking and picking. Which credit Brett Veach to this point. We are into round 3, and Brett Veach has not traded up once yet. In fact, he's traded back once and got an extra selection, and that's the extent of what he's done to this point. So credit to Brett Veach for not moving up here. Looks like we're going to get the selection live again as well.
Unbelievable. Nobody else has it. Again, worth remembering, this is the L'Jarius Sneed pick here, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, I have the selection.
All right, I'm about to get it live.
You gave me a smile and an ooh. So.
Yes, with the 66th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select Louisville edge Ashton Gillotte. The trenches continue, and this is a very Steve Spagnuolo defensive end selection, one of Matty Lane's favorite players. Maybe not every single threshold met for him, but if you're looking at a play style for Steve Spagnuolo, Ashton Gillotte is one of the most Steve Spagnuolo defensive end types when you talk about what you do when you put on the tape.
I love the player here. Is it Gillett for sure?
Gillett.
I'm going to figure out. Okay, we'll call it Gillett for now. If it changes to something else later, we'll figure that out. But I actually really like this player.
Dan Brugler says Gillotte.
I'm going to go with Dane Brugler and go with Gelati.
Gelati.
We'll go with Gelati and say Kent's wrong. I love the football player here. He was a lot more productive last year for Louisville than he was this year, but I don't think it was any fault of his own. I mean, he plays with his hair on fire. There is just true raw power in his hands through his lower body. This guy is like tuned up Mike Dana. That's exactly what he is. He's kind of built like him. That's got the same body type. He's a little bit sawed off, a little bit shorter, but very dense, very muscular. Love the player. I'm a little surprised the Chiefs liked him. I'm going to be honest. Steve Spagnuolo has been big on his longer, bigger defensive ends. Guys like Landon Jackson we talked about are available, but I can draw a very direct comparison straight back to a Dana and say, hey, he looks just like him on the field, and then he plays with more juice and more energy. So I really like the pick. My surprise face when they did it was kind of like when they took Trent McDuffie a couple years ago. It's just against their trend, so it takes a second to process it despite really liking the player.
I think the funny thing is, though, like as we've had these conversations over the course of the offseason, we've at least like acknowledged that maybe he doesn't check every threshold of a Steve Spagnuolo defensive end, but when you watch how he plays, there are some things that you see that you kind of correlate to how Steve Spagnuolo prefers. Yes, he is on the shorter arm side. He's sub 32-inch arms, which I think is one of those things. And like he's 264 pounds, which the 260-pound threshold would be there. Steve Spagnuolo typically likes defensive ends over 6'3"-ish, right? And he's a tad under there. But man, like you look at the explosive metrics for him. The relative athletic score for Ashton Gillotte, a 9.74.
Woo, is that good?
That's very good.
What's the highest score?
It's 10.
Okay.
So you're talking about an elite 10-yard split, a sub 1.6 10-yard split. You're talking about a 3-cone under 7 seconds, a short shuttle of 4.35, a vertical of 38 inches, a broad of 10 inches or 10 feet. Really good athletic testing. And then you watch the tape, and he does play the way that Steve Spagnuolo would appreciate, even though maybe the measurables don't line up exactly. You see the play style and you appreciate it. And you think like that's how Steve Spagnuolo would like a defensive end to play.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to draw the connection of how he fits with the Chiefs. Like, I don't think it's difficult to watch him. It's just seeing the body type is not typically what they go for. But yeah, so I like this pick. I think it's a very good pick for them. He can come in, he can give you snaps early on too. This is another guy. He doesn't need a developmental curve. I think he's pretty physically ready for the NFL. He's strong, super powerful player. I think he's physically matured. He's played a lot of snaps for Louisville. When he goes up against his best competition, the Notre Dames and stuff like that, he still stands out compared to those guys. So I think this is a good player. I think he will go out there. He will earn reps early on. It's just intriguing to see. Yeah, just trying to find the fit, trying to figure out where he fits in a draft like this was a little surprising. He ended up being, I think, our edge 13 in this class, and there was still some players available that were ahead of him. But I think I understand the Chiefs and how they like to play their defensive ends, buying in on his upside or how he fits with them a little bit over those guys, even if he still technically was a low fit based on the shorter arms in particular.
Yeah, and like I think if you're looking like, hey, we've got 13 edges ranked and he's sitting there at 13, right? I think if you can weed out some of those edges based on fit, and like there's a premium. If there's a premium on football character, the way that he plays, I think in the passion, the energy, the motor that he plays with. I think that's going to be hard to ignore when you put the tape on for Ashton Gillotte. Gillotte.
Or Josh is just messing with us, which is also possible.
Brugler says Gillotte.
Okay, so here's my last two lines from the KCSN Draft Guide. Gillotte lacks the length that the Chiefs typically look for in their defensive ends, but they have taken some exceptions with similar play styles.
Mm-hmm.
His overall density and power profile might be enough to make up for the lack of length, as they will value his run defense, effort, and power-based rushing attack. If I were to make the elevator pitch on why they ignored having sub 32-inch arms, that would be it.
My notes: dense physical edge, wants to run through a lineman's face and often does it. Was the first couple lines.
Yeah.
That's some of my evaluation. A violent bull rush paired with a great motor and flashes very good hand technique. Like those are all traits that I think, yes, he doesn't fit the archetype, or as you say, archetype, in its entirety. But man, like I'm excited about the pick. I'm excited about the play style and how it pairs with the rest of what they have on this defensive line. And it is interesting, right? This team just going trenches, man. This team is just, they are going all in on trenches early. They have 3 picks, 3 big boys. They're intentional here right now. They're intentional about addressing their fronts, both sides of the ball, prioritizing, just getting better in the trenches. So I really appreciate that about what they've done to this point. So, Omar Norman Law and Ashton Gillotte, I hope is what I got it right. But two newest members of the Kansas City Chiefs. So we're sitting here with 2 picks, pick 63, pick 66. Give me a grade on these 2 selections.
Separately or together?
Let's do separate. Let's do separate.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Pick 63, D. And pick 66, B plus.
Okay, give me an explanation on Omar Norman Lott and why you would have liked him to go different
I
direction.
don't think he can play the run at the end. He couldn't play the run at Arizona State or Tennessee. I don't think that's going to magically allow him to play the run at the NFL level. And I think next to Chris Jones, you need somebody who can reliably play the run. Chris Jones is a wild card versus the run. It's either splash play or a little bit of a liability. So you can't really play those two together, or you might not be able to play Omar Norman Lott at all versus the run. And as a pass rusher, I mean, I said it. I tried to kind of skirt around it being too negative on the draft show here, but I found that he was fresh and had effort, whereas offensive linemen were on play 7, 8, and 9 of a drive and were tired. I think he just overwhelmed them with energy more so than technique or athleticism. So I didn't see the flashes. I think that's where I fall on him. Is he can't play the run, and he's more of a very seldomly used pass rusher that capitalized on being fresher.
Yeah, I think I'll give it from just my perspective from some of the other players on the board. I'll probably give it a C-. Like, if you are identifying a specific need for your defense and you're wanting to say, like, from a theme perspective, this is what I want. Yeah, I want someone that's gonna give me some success on rush downs and really disrupt the from the interior. I get addressing that if that's what you're wanting to try to go out and get. As far as like how I feel about, compared to some of the other players out there available on the board, I think I would have liked the Chiefs go a different direction, unless they like some of the pockets of players, that they want to try to address some of these other positions a little bit differently. I think that's where, we're going to find out. We're going to see the full picture of what this board and what this draft looks like for the Chiefs as far as like how they want, what pockets of players that they want to play in and what they feel that they'll be able to get down the line. Maybe they feel like they're going to be able to get a cornerback that they like in a different pocket, or a receiver in a pocket that they like a little bit differently. And if that's the case, then I understand, hey, let's just make sure that we're getting one of these defensive tackles that we like. They're clearly prioritizing some interior pressure to pair with Chris Jones, and I can't blame them for that if that's what they think is the best move. I give it a C- because I do like some of the other players that are available on the board. And in my opinion, I like to see players that maybe have a more complete body of work that can play more downs or this early in the draft. But they placed a premium on internal rush, and that's what they got. They got a guy that can do that. Ashton Gillotte, you said a B+. Explain the pick.
I think he's very good versus the run. I think his energy, his effort, and how he rushes the passer is going to translate to the NFL to be a productive player. I would have a harder time seeing him not have a role in the NFL than a lot of other guys. I could see Landon Jackson, who we all liked. We all said we'd want him to be the pick. I could see him not washing out of the NFL, but I could see him struggling to find his footing because he doesn't play with the best leverage. He can get pushed out on the run. That's not going to happen for Gillotte. He is going to do a fantastic job of holding up versus the run, and he's going to give you effort, energy, and power as at minimum a pocket pusher as a pass rusher. So safer floor. I think the athleticism that we talked about, I think it shows up on tape. I've seen him run through Joe Alt and Blake Fisher, two starting offensive tackles in the NFL. I've seen him run right through their chest and get pressures against Notre Dame. That means you can play at the NFL level to me. So I just see higher flashes from him and a safer floor. I like that pick, even if there might have been some other defensive ends that fit a Steve Spagnuolo archetype a little bit better.
Well, and I think what you're hearing is, Steve Spagnuolo is signing off on all these picks too, right? So maybe he doesn't have the length that they prefer, but outside of the length, like I think you can get away with, outside of the length, I think he fits a Steve Spagnuolo defensive end absolutely perfectly. And that's kind of what I kind of say about that. I give it a B+ as well.
Yeah.
I think I think this is a lot of people really like JT Tuimoloau. And JT Tuimoloau has, you could take an inch off of JTT's arms and give them to Ashton Gillotte, and they'd both be about Steve Spagnuolo defensive end fit still. But if you're asking me, outside of the arm length, like I think there's some similarities in the way that both of those two guys play, with a lot of great effort, energy, density, power, running through a tackle, exceptional motors, those kind of things. Ashton Gillotte feels a little bit more like a discount JT Tuimoloau for me. So getting him at the end, or getting at the beginning of round 3, I like that player. And again, like your theme is defensive line. The Chiefs are just saying, we're going to get out ahead of these defensive linemen. We're going to take care of it. We're going to take these guys. We're going to make sure that we're, investing in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And they're not messing around with either of those. They pick at pick 63 and pick 66. And it's 2 defensive tackles. Two defensive linemen they're adding into that room. as we sit here, how do you feel just about the entirety of the draft at this point?
Listen, Joshua Simmons, much to Tucker's chagrin, is doing a lot of the water carrying for me right now. I think that's still an A++ pick, so that's going to drag anything up for me. It would be hard to have messed this up, I think, entirely based on what we have seen after how good of a pick I think Simmons can be. Give me, and then you come back with Gillotte, I think was a good pick. So overall, B+, A-. We're right there on the range of going from B+ to A-. I'm going to come back, as I always say. To me, a C is an average draft. I don't grade like ESPN does, where everybody gets a B or an A. I give out a lot of C's when I do draft grades. A B+ is a very good grade. So I'm B+, A- right now. I think that they could have done better at the end of the second round that would have really solidified it. What about you?
You know what? We'll see how the rest of this draft goes. As I sit right now, it's like a solid B for me.
I'm higher than you. Let's go.
B+. Okay, chill out. B+. I see the vision for what they're doing here. I see what they're trying to address, and that they're just trying to continue to add bodies to that front. And they're going to need bodies. I mean, they need to continue to invest on both sides of the football. I'm always going to be supportive of that. And let's just see what the rest of the vision is for the rest of this draft. They still have picked 95 on day 2 of the draft, and they've got 5 selections on Saturday. So we'll kind of see what the full reveal of that is. But the Chiefs have added 2 more defensive linemen, taking Omar Norman-Lott out of Tennessee at pick 63 and Ashton Gillotte, the edge, out of Louisville.